We have, we have a team of multidisciplinary team that works to make things happen, that are on the ground, that are doing the work, that are in every day, every hour, that are kind of monitoring and changing lives for our residents. Individualized care requires holistic approach, multidisciplinary approach. It's not one team that sorts everything, but it's a wider group, a wider people that help to make our lives, or residents of our the lives of our residents better. I'm here to introduce a team that's working with us. That does a lot. They are fully loaded. I have Rosalind Gray, who is the head of Therapies, Caryn Straker, our dietitian, Alastair Addison, head of engagement and spiritual care, who are going to talk about therapies in care home. Please welcome the team.
Gosh, what a fabulous day. I'm going to quote Helen first, because that just stuck with me. Care homes are places that people go to live well until they die. And I think that was just such a beautifully said statement. And words from this morning and from the last sessions: quality of life, absolutely. Relationships, intergenerational activities, meaningful activity. I should say I'm an occupational therapist. Choice and control, anticipatory care planning, frailty. It just feeds so beautifully into our session, which is the role of therapies in a care home. So I'd like to welcome you to our session. I think Clemens has introduced us briefly, but we'll just reintroduce ourselves.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Caryn Straker, and I am the dietitian at Nightingale Hammerson.
Good afternoon. I'll take my mask off as well. Good afternoon. I'm Alastair Addison. I'm the head of the engagement team, and I'm delighted that some of my team are here today as well. And we've got the team represented here in Hammerson as well.
And I'm Rosalind. I'm the head of Therapies. I've got 3 mics. This is great. I've got quite a voice, so that's probably why. I'm the head of Therapies. So in our team, we've got occupational therapists, physiotherapists, and a moving and handling advisor. And we very much do work together really closely as a multidisciplinary team. So when we were thinking about our talk today, or in designing our talk, we could have listed everything that we do in Therapies, and it would have taken us quite a long time. So it's everything from palliative rehabilitation to spiritual care, from cognitive rehabilitation to supporting nutrition, hydration and meal times, from posture and seating to exercise classes, from reminiscence therapy to sensory integration, from mobility and falls management to equipment and moving and handling, from anticipatory care planning to education sessions. That's also advanced care planning, because I know the terminology changes. From self-care activities to concerts, days out and full engagement programs. And all of these are an integral part of what we do, and there's a lot that I haven't listed as well. But the question we pose to ourselves, therefore, is what makes therapies in a care home different? I think firstly and most importantly, this is our residents' home. And I think we remember that more than anything else. We are a guest to our residents. We're part of a family, and the mode that we deliver our therapy is therefore quite different. But this can also be one of the challenges of research, as it doesn't always feel appropriate to consider standardized tests and assessments and outcome measures in the work that we do. We also often observe wonderful achievements and successes, but these can be hard to attribute to any one factor. We work very much as an integrated team, and we provide personalised care. Another benefit, one of the true benefits of our team, is being in-house. And we really reflected on how lucky we are to have an in-house team here at Nightingale Hammerson. As an external therapist, you may only see your resident at a point in time. Being in-house means we can accommodate, we can see fluctuations, we can pick up on the small changes, and we get to know our residents with our household teams so we can deliver care in a true person-centred and relationship-centred way. Also, many of our residents communicate with us in different ways, and there's been discussion about that this morning. Caryn and I have often talked about how we use our detective hats. I think that might be our superpower, actually. Our detective hats to observe, to consider, and to try and work out what the root cause of a difficulty or problem might be. Our residents often live with multiple chronic conditions, so teamwork and interdisciplinary work is essential. And this very much includes all of our household colleagues as well. And we'd really like to represent them today because they are such an integral part of our team. So really importantly, for our residents, I think it's often the difference between living and existing. So as an illustration today, we would like to invite you to our multidisciplinary team and a reflective case discussion where we reflect on our input with Judith. Now, Judith is a lady in her 80s who lives with dementia and has recently returned from a short stay in hospital. On return from hospital, the handover indicated that Judith was declining to eat and drink. She needed the support of a hoist for all transfers and didn't engage with the team. Now, I should add, Judith is a bit of a combination of many of our residents, and we have obviously changed the name for confidentiality. So I'm going to start a bit from an occupational therapy, a physiotherapy, and a moving and handling perspective. So as with many of our residents who come to us from hospital, initially it's about settling that resident in and using the handover of the hospital for key things. So we have a specialist moving and handling advisor in our team, and we provided equipment and modifications so that Judith could come home, including hoist and slings, pressure care mattresses, and falls risk assessment. But the next thing really is about our assessment and actually what's really important to Judith. And I think this is a lot of what we do as a therapy team, is try and understand the needs and wishes of our residents. Now, with the residents that can talk to us, obviously we goal set, and that is our therapeutic approach in the way we work. But not all our residents can tell us what's important to us. We may well have life story information, we may have history, but we're also looking to the resident to understand at that point in time what they really need. And so when Judith first came to us, we were observing Judith to understand what her needs were. And ironically, Judith was also observing us. So what we noticed with Judith was very much looking like she was asleep most of the day. Her eyes were shut. There didn't seem to be much happening in Judith's life. But when we watched her a bit more, we noticed that actually when she wanted to, Judith would open her eyes and she would look to see what was going on. And if somebody approached her, she'd close her eyes again. This really helped us because we saw that Judith was taking control over her environment. Essentially, she was making a decision when she wanted to engage with people and when she didn't. It also gave us a clue that actually from a cognitive element, she was able to be part of, or she was thinking and making a conscious decision of what she wanted to do. We began to look at what Judith was engaging with and what she wasn't engaging with. And it became evident that there were certain things happening that she enjoyed, like music that was happening on the household. Sometimes activities would be happening around Judith that she wasn't part of necessarily, but actually she was still getting a benefit from. And I know Alastair is going to cover a bit more in a minute about our PAL score and how we use that. So the next thing we looked at was then Judith seems to be telling us she wants to engage, but on her terms. So how can we support that? So from an occupational therapy perspective, we very much looked at seating. Now, you may think a chair is a chair, and you've probably all got that after lunch feeling, and you're moving about on your chairs right now, and they may be comfortable and they may not. But a chair can be a lot of things, and we use chairs as a way of goal setting. So it was about supporting Judith with her posture. It was about looking at range of movement, but it was also about pressure care and comfort. But really importantly with Judith, we knew she wanted to engage. It was about creating a position in the chair where she had an eye line and she could look and she could see what was going on in her world. We also knew that Judith was quite tired, and so providing a chair with the right postural support meant that she could manage her fatigue. If you're not putting all of your energy into your sitting, you're more likely to have a bit of energy to expend on something else that you like. If you've heard the theory of spoons, Judith was choosing perhaps how she was using her spoons. You can Google it if you haven't heard it. So the next thing we looked at was very much around 24-hour programs. And I think this is something that we do really well in care homes. It's not just a point in time for our residents, but it's about the whole of their life around the clock. And we very much noticed that Judith was often asleep in the day, but actually her nights were quite upsetting. She became quite agitated and they weren't necessarily comfortable. So we made some alterations. We changed the environment, both the physical and the social environment, so that we could support Judith a bit more to get her 24-hour programme reset. We work very closely with our engagement team to try and bring in more activities in the day and stimulate sensory stimulation for Judith, so that actually she was more able to participate in the day and better sleep at night. The next key thing was about relationships, and we've talked today about how important relationships are. So we knew there were certain people that Judith would engage with more than others, and I think this is really important with our residents, that we acknowledge that people form different relationships on their households. So we began to identify those people that we knew Judith would work with more than others, and that really helped us with our therapy. What was wonderful with Judith is the success that she started to talk. So I think the person that had come out of hospital that really wasn't engaging, that really, if you like, the hospital had said to us, actually, she's coming home, but really, in terms of our coding for palliative care, she wasn't expected to live very long and not much with quality life. Judith was now engaged. She was making eye contact. She was talking, sometimes words, sometimes sentences, and that was wonderful. We also continue to observe, and I think a lot of our assessment and intervention in therapy is observation with our residents. And we knew that Judith was beginning to look like she wanted to walk. Now, you're probably all thinking in your chairs, wouldn't it be nice to stretch right now? So we were beginning to see Judith beginning to move in her chair, and we had a sense that she probably could walk, and she was going to try and walk. We also knew, and this is about how we approach therapy in a care home, that if we had approached Judith in the standard way to physiotherapists saying, would you like to walk? The answer would have been eyes closed and no. That was Judith's way of communicating to us. So we worked very closely with the household team. We had equipment on standby. We supported the household team of what to do if Judith tried to walk. And Judith did. One day she got up and she tried to walk. The household team were there, they were ready, and Judith walked. I think there's a lot that goes on with Judith, and Caryn and Alastair will pick up on some of the things, but it's an illustration of how work in a care home can be very different. We're thinking very much about the person and the way that we are responding to them. So I will pass on.
So one of our great challenges was to discover who Judith actually was. What was her life story? What were the things that gave her a degree of fulfillment and was meaningful to her individually? And so my colleague, who's actually here looking after us at the back there, Tessa, was involved in supporting Judith. And one of the things that we tried to do at the beginning was create a really strong relationship with her family. Now, because of the COVID situation, we had to really think out of the box as to how we create that relationship together. And so we used Zoom sessions to build up a rapport so that her son could actually see that, yes, she was comfortable, she was being cared for, and he could actually see her on a daily basis. We looked at the life story from another perspective because we wanted really to understand the sort of things that might really connect with her. And so one of the things that we explored was the development of a storybook. We'd heard that actually Judith was really interested in swimming and sport. And so her son sent us some pictures. We created this lovely illustrated book that a member of staff could use to connect with her and to make her feel that she was really engaging positively. We use an assessment tool that actually is an occupational therapy tool called the PAL assessment, and it focuses on 4 levels of engagement. And that is that we look at planned activities, we look at exploratory activities, we look at sensory activities, and we look at reflex activities. When Judith first came into our family, we could see that her actual engagement was very limited. It was really very much from a reflex perspective, but at a later stage, that moved on to sensory engagement. And part of that was due to the commitment that Tessa, as the engagement lead for the household, was giving to Judith on a regular basis. And also sharing that way of working with the staff team. Because we recognized very, very quickly, as Rosalind said, that actually Judith wasn't somebody who related to everybody in the same way. And because of the fact that her timetable varied on a daily basis, we had to be responsive as when